G'day, my name's Dave. I'm an Australian citizen. I emigrated here when I was 4 years old, so I know what it's like to be an immigrant. And did I say I was 52? Can't remember anyway. I'm starting to lose my memory. Obviously. I want to tell you something about why it is I'm actually going to be voting for Kevin Rudd. You take it or leave it as you like. You see what you think. But I'm just sick to death of watching these ad campaigns that are going on the TV at the moment, where I reckon Howard is bullshitting us. Okay? So I'm going to try and put my contrary view as part of my democratic right. I don't know whether it's legal or not. I don't give a rat's ass. Okay? The first thing I want to talk about is I'm sick to death of this bloody union scaremongering crap that Howard's putting on all the time. I want to ask you a very, very simple question about unions, right? How far do you reckon you'd be in your workplace? How many things do you think you'd have if it wasn't for unions over the past 50 years or so in our society? You ask yourself that honestly, right? Do you seriously think you'd have paid holidays? Do you seriously think you'd have sick leave? Do you seriously bloody think that you'd be able to sue for compensation based upon tort of negligence against organisations if it wasn't for the fight and movement of the union movement over the time? Now, I am a member of a union, and I'll tell you that right now, straight up front, right? There's no bullshit with what I'm telling you. I'm a member of the Teachers Union here in South Australia because I'm a student at the moment trying to get back in the workforce at the age of 52, and it's the only thing I can think of to do it, right? So much for Howard saying that it's, we've never had it better. Well, Howard, I've lived for 52 years and I can tell you it's been a shitload better than it is at the moment. And you can't turn around and say it was Labor anymore, mate, because you've had 11 years to plan it to turn it round. And the only thing that you come up with, mate, is stuff right at the beginning of every election campaign. That's when you make your promises, and after you've won, that's when you break them. 5 bloody interest rate rises, you lying bastard. 5 interest rate rises. Sue me if you like, I don't give a rat's ass. Okay? The other thing about unions, let me talk about this one here. I'm just reading on another screen here, that's why I'm looking off to the side. What about, ask this guy, Bernie, what's his name? Bernie Banton, right? Now, this is a guy who worked for James Hardie for years, ends up with asbestosis, which is lung disease, okay, which will kill him, no question about it. There are thousands of other people who got it working at James Hardie as well. As far as I understand it, they actually knew a long time before that asbestos was a dangerous bloody product. The workers kept working with it, they didn't tell them, and as a result these guys are dying. Now tell me whether you seriously think the companies would have turned around and said, oh mate, look, we stuffed up here, here's some money to try and compensate for the fact you're going to die and leave your wives bloody husbandless and your children fatherless. How likely is that going to have been if it wasn't for the union movement stepping in to push it? Even then, as I remember it, James Hardie pushed itself offshore in order to try and escape payment. I don't know whether that's right or not. I don't want to be sued for it. Doesn't matter anyway because I'm bankrupt, so stuff ya. Okay? I have run about 12 businesses in my life over the time. All sorts of different businesses in different ways. I've had over 32 jobs, and a lot of them working, labouring, short-term and bits and pieces, and I have been to university and I've done 3 degrees, okay, because I got sick of working. No, I worked all the time while I was doing the degrees at the same time, and I brought up 3 children, the oldest of which is 27 now. So I reckon I've got a reasonable understanding of what goes on in society. My kids are now having kids, so I'm going to be a grandfather sometime next year. And I am bloody worried about what it is, about who it is going to get in this election. I'm bloody worried about it because I've watched over the last 11 years Australia changing into a place that I don't want it to be. There's people overboard. Why do you keep forgetting this crap, Australia? All the time, people overboard. Lies, lies, lies. Proven to be bloody lies. but wins an election, then afterwards he gives a rat's ass. Nothing about bloody work choices prior to the election. As soon as he wins the election, in comes work choices. Now, how the hell do you cope with that? That is just, has to be viewed as lying. Are you telling me that straight after he won the election, he turned around and went, oh, hang on, I've got a really good idea. I'm now going to suddenly introduce something called work choices that I hadn't even thought of beforehand? Bullshit, mate. You knew about it right at the very beginning. You knew about it before the election. You just didn't tell the Australian bloody public. Okay, getting a bit worked up here. And on to the next. Okay, still on unions here. Now, have a think about it this way, right? Have you got car insurance? Answer, yes. Have you got house insurance if you're lucky enough to have a bloody house, which I haven't got? Yes, okay. If you're renting, have you got contents insurance? Probably yes. Why? Why have you got it? You've got it in case something goes wrong. You pay the money out for 12 months, and if nothing goes wrong, you get nothing back. Is that right? Well, I want you to think about unions in the same way, right? Are you a member of a union? Well, I'll tell you what, right? You may get nothing back from that union during the 12 months that you're actually in the scheme, you know, that you pay the money across to the union. And I've heard a lot of mates of mine talk like that. Well, I pay the money to the union, I get bugger all. Mate, you don't get bugger all. I'll tell you what happens. It's an insurance scheme. If you're like bloody Bernie here, who's had asbestosis, when the shit hits the fan, the union's there to back you. It's there to back you with lawyers that cost a bloody fortune that you could never afford. It's there with social pressure. It's there with the ability to argue with politicians. It's there with all of the things that none of us as ordinary blokes have actually got the opportunity to do or the ability to do. That's when it's necessary. It's when the shit hits the fan, you need people behind your back, okay? Or you've got the alternative, which is what Howard puts forward. He says, mate, he says, look, don't worry, the bosses will look after you. That's what they always do. Ask yourself the question, is that really true? How many times have you seen the owner of an organisation turn around and say, oh, hang on for a second, I made another $2 billion or $2 million this year, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to distribute my wealth with the people who work for me, who actually created 90% of it. Well, I've owned about 8 businesses in my life, and I can tell you that when I owned the business, even with my understandings and views, I never bloody did it. And I don't reckon, mate, that people who've got lots and lots of money feel sort of beneficent with it and want to give it away all the time. Now, there are a few exceptions to that, I've got to say, and I'm going to tell you one that I'm really proud of, one person I think is absolutely bloody superb, and that's the guy who owns Microsoft, because he gives billions of dollars away, but they're rare. They're rare by the fact that they do it. People hear about it because they are an exception, not because they are the rule. If you reckon that you can trust your boss, if you reckon when you look at your boss you can trust him or her to turn around and look after you when the shit hits the fan, if when you get some sort of bloody disease or an injury at work or whatever it is, and you think that you're going to be able to rely on them to pay all your bills for you, if you think that even if they're really nice people, when it comes down to it, if the company's controlled by a board or someone else, you probably don't even know who's on the board that controls the corporation. If you reckon you can rely on them totally, then yeah, maybe unions are irrelevant. But if you can't rely on them, mate, you've got to have someone to back you up. And I can tell you this, if I'm in a fight, I want a large number of people around me. I don't want to be the only one. Okay? See you later.